Yes, sir, we're officially back at it. This is Boog Nice coming at you with the Marvel Legends Sasquatch Build-A-Figure Wave Domino figure review. Let's do it.
This ain't for no scalper. You a scalper? Then fuck out shit. This one's for them real collectors. That's army building and posing figures. Marvel Legends, imports, mini Mayfield fucking with them. Hype beasts, we know about you. Stay buying figs, don't know about it.
8 figures per case, 2 red pools per case, no Build-A-Figure part with red pool. You need 6 figures in total to complete the Sasquatch Build-A-Figure. Alright, taking a look at Domino out of the package, and I think this figure came out pretty good. Not too many complaints. I do have a few issues. I think they made some interesting choices as far as the deco is concerned and as far as the buck for this figure is concerned. But definitely some nice things and some things to note. Taking a look at her bio from the back of the package, it reads, Domino creates her own luck with a subconscious ability to predict the success of any given action. So yeah, she's a mutant. She has some weird sort of luck powers. She was the original member of Cable's X-Force crew back in the 90s. This is not the 90s look. I'll get into that shortly. And then she was later or more recently a member of Wolverine's X-Force squad, or Cyclops' covert X-Force squad that Wolverine was leading. And she comes with the right arm to complete the Sasquatch Build-A-Figure. And then she also comes with a couple of guns. And while I do really like the design on these guns, I hate the fact that they are painted purple. So Hasbro continuing the trend of giving us guns that do not look authentic at all. It's just a flat purple here, and this looks so weird. I really wish they would have been chrome or black. I guess you could do a quick repaint and make them look better, but I don't think we've seen these guns before. And no real issue with her holding the guns. Her fingers are in the trigger groove and everything looks pretty authentic as far as her holding the gun. My major issue with the guns is the fact that they're purple, but also that they can't be holstered anywhere. So while she does have this belt and this sort of harness and this strap and everything here, you can't holster the guns anywhere. So it would have been nice to have them include maybe a couple of extra guns, smaller guns that could be holstered here, and have maybe they could have changed up the harness. So that kind of ties into the deco. And like I mentioned, they made some interesting choices here with the deco. This looks very similar to what she was sporting during the time she was running around with Wolverine's X-Force during Messiah War. So aside from the fact that there is no X on her belt, and I do feel like her harness in that run of the comic books did have some holsters for her guns, it does look very similar to that look. So it's not the classic 90s look. You're not going to get her matched up with Cable from the same wave as far as the deco is concerned, but you can get matched up with some other things that Hasbro has already offered. I guess I'll show all of that stuff when I do the size comparisons. And, it's pretty much just all black with some silver highlights here on the gauntlets and on the shin pads and the knee pads here. And like I said, it is pretty accurate to how it was drawn in the comic. Not exact. They did take some liberties here, but it's pretty decent. And just taking a close look at her head sculpt, I think they did a pretty good job on the head. I'm not a fan of this line here across her hair, but it is a nice head sculpt. I don't know if it's something that we've seen before. It could be one of the female heads that Hasbro has been using, and they just kind of painted it in her signature white pasty skin tone with the black ring around her eye. So I'm not 100% sure if this is a head we've seen before, but it does look pretty good. And other than that, no additional accessories. Like I said, I would have liked them to include some more guns with her. She is somebody who is proficient with firearms, and she's definitely always busting a gun. I would have liked them to include some interchangeable hands too. The hands really make these figures oftentimes, as far as posing and displaying and really giving them a little more personality. Some open hands or something like that would have worked. But if they were going to include any hands, they should have definitely been the 2 trigger fingers, being that she comes with 2 guns. Just going over her articulation, to me it looks like this is the same buck as the Mockingbird figure, if I'm not mistaken, or at least they borrow some parts. And I say that because Mockingbird had a pretty decent range of motion, considering that she didn't have an ab crunch or double jointed elbows, all of the things that I want to see on the female figures that I always mention. But you do get a decent range of motion on this figure. I don't like how the head is very loose on this neck. You can pop off the head with no problem, but it's weird how it sits on that neck peg. It is on a ball joint. You can get her to look down pretty far and look up pretty far, but you know, you got to be careful when you're putting it up, because it will kind of separate from that joint and look kind of awkward. But you get a great range of pivot because it's so loose. Can turn left to right, do a full 360, all of that good stuff. The arms, shoulders are on a ball joint. They're going to come up just about that far. You can do a full 360. No upper bicep swivel. Single jointed elbow that also swivels. A hinge and a swivel on the wrist. And this is what I was talking about as far as the upper torso articulation. You do get a pretty good range of motion there. Unfortunately, no ab crunch, no waist swivel. T-joint at the pelvis. The legs will come up just about that far. A split will look like that. You do get an upper thigh swivel. You do get a double jointed knee. You do get a hinge and a pivot on the foot. But again, this is one of the better female bucks as far as articulation goes. Still not enough, in my opinion, for somebody like Domino, who's going to be running, jumping, flipping, doing all types of acrobatics. And, you know, she's pretty agile. I would have liked to see some more articulation, but doesn't really, none of these female bucks really lend to that. You know, they got to create something new in order for us to get females with really great articulation. And a few quick size comparisons. You can see her next to her original teammate Cable on the left. This is Cable from the Juggernaut Build-A-Figure wave. And I think the size between the two of them are about right. Now, this is not the exact costume that Cable was sporting when he was running around with that Messiah War crew. But again, I think the size is about right. And on the right, you can see the old Toy Biz X-Men Classics Domino. This was a look that she sported in the comics for quite some time. She's had so many different looks in the comic books. But I do like the fact that they picked this particular look. And real quick before we move on, I think it should be noted that even the old Toy Biz Domino had holsters for her guns here. So I don't know how Hasbro dropped the ball, but definitely this new one is absolutely trumping the old one. The old one, the head looks kind of small. The body was really weird. The proportions were weird. The articulation at the pelvis was really weird on this particular buck too. So definitely cool that they updated Domino here. And then there she is next to a couple of more of her teammates in the proper costumes, might I add. So you got Wolverine here on the left. I don't remember. I always get confused. I'm not sure if this is the one that was released single carded or if this is the one from the SDCC 3-pack. Let me know in the comments if you know. I always get confused. But Wolverine sporting the X-Force gear. And then Warpath sporting his X-Force gear. So the three of them were running around together in these outfits actually. So originally, the team that Cyclops put together was Wolverine, X-23, Wolfsbane, and Warpath. And then as the story progressed, Archangel joined, which I'll break out in a second, and Elixir and Vanisher. And then they went into the future and met up with Cable and Deadpool. So it was a pretty ragtag band of killers and what have you. But the fact that we got these two guys and Domino and X-23 in her proper costume as part of this wave as well, it does look like Hasbro's trying to round out that kind of core X-Force team from Messiah War through Second Coming. And it should be noted that the Wolverine that I showed is before they introduced the new buck that you see here right next to her on the left. So if at some point they wanted to redo this Wolverine on this buck in the X-Force colors, that would be great. I don't know that we're going to see that. And then on the right, you have Archangel. Like I said, he ended up joining that crew as well. If you haven't read any of that story, Messiah War through Second Coming, all of that X-Force stuff up through Second Coming, you absolutely should. I actually went back and started reading it since I picked up these figures because I remember it being such a fun read, and it still is. It is still pretty good. And I left Warpath up here because this was the buck that they introduced before they kind of retooled it a little bit and made the legs a little thicker like they did on the Wrecking Crew dudes. So if they were to revisit this guy, that'd be great. So her guns are a stupid color. I wish there were actually more guns. I wish there was a place to holster her guns. The head is kind of funny on that neck. That could just be unique to my particular figure. But overall, I still do think the figure came out pretty nice, and I'm glad that they chose this particular costume for her. I'd like to see some people maybe mess around and kit bash some different bodies and just pop this head on some different bodies and do some different things as far as the her build. I'm not 100% sure if I'm happy with this particular buck as far as the build for her. Maybe her lower half should have been a little more thick, a little more hips, a little more butt. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about that yet. But this is still one that I would recommend. I do think she came out pretty nice overall. Definitely more things that I like as opposed to things that I dislike. I'm hoping Hasbro does revisit this character though and kind of round out the 90s X-Force squad and get us that classic X-Force squad complete. So we're gonna have to get another Domino at some point. So that brings me to my final order of business. I did not mention this in the Paladin review, but everybody's gonna ask me how I got the wave, where I got the wave. Shout out to my man Dave BX. He actually picked up a few of the figures for me from one of our Toys R Us's here out in New York City. Now this is the deal. The Deadpool wave is slated for an April 13th release date. That is the street date for the Deadpool wave or the Sasquatch Build-A-Figure wave. But a lot of Toys R Us stores across the country have gotten the wave in early, and they have it in their back room, in their stock room, but they're not trying to sell it, or they're not supposed to be selling it to anybody until April 13th. Now, some employees or some stores have made some mistakes, and some of them have showed up on shelves, and that's how you see certain people getting them. They're not officially out yet. You can't order them and get them immediately right now. You can pre-order them with certain sites. Now, it's my understanding that the Black Panther wave, which is out right now, it was slated for February. You can see that wave in store. In fact, I've been army building Nakia so I can get my Dora Milaje together. And I believe the Lizard Build-A-Figure wave is slated for a March release. And then Deadpool is in April. But you know, these things happen. People get lucky. I got lucky. And maybe you can get out there and kind of slip your Toys R Us manager $20 to give you the wave early. I don't know how that's going to work. It should be noted, too, that the Mr. Fantastic, the Walgreens Mr. Fantastic figure showed up in Kentucky today, too. So that's going to probably start trickling out across the country soon. But, yeah, get out there, get on the hunt, do your thing. Thanks for hanging out. As always, rate, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, peace.